John Belushi is dead. Death is something that continues to fascinate human thought because it is the only unavoidable reality that comes with life. We enter the world, and at some time later on, hopefully, we leave it. The only way to cheat death is to immortalize yourself, yet, at the end of the day, does it really matter if you died a natural death or died from a drug overdose? We all reach the dirt some way, somehow. John Belushi is Dead is a breakout novel by Kathy Charles that touches on the obsession with death, especially celebrity deaths. I mean, you turn on VH1 and there's always something about celebrity tragedies, especially since last year was like so many celebrities had passed on. In this book, we have Hilda and Benji, our lead characters, who are best friends due to their shared obsession with death, celebrities. Instead of going to the mall or doing normal teen activities, they run around Hollywood looking for pieces of the past. At first, the book comes off as a place for the writer to drop her fun facts about the morbid, gritty lives and deaths of John Belushi, James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, and Jane Mansfield, who all kind of come up again and again throughout the book. Fortunately, as soon as we're introduced to the character Hank, the story begins to develop some true depth. Hilda's obsession with death really comes from seeing her parents die in a car crash, a la Jane Mansfield, which oddly enough gives her comfort because in her mind, if death can happen for someone like Jane Mansfield, it can't be that bad. However, in the back of her mind, she's really haunted by her own morbid thoughts, and it becomes clearer that she's really not comfortable with what she does. She just does it to kind of make death not scary anymore. She removes the fear by not admitting she's afraid. The relationship she later develops with Hank and Jake allows her to realize that there is no glory in being dead. Death tends to glorify people and puts a little halo of sanctity over their personality, even if they were controversial in their lifetime. I mean, if you just look at Michael Jackson, when he was alive, people had no problem talking about him, making jokes about him, scandals about him. As soon as he died, all of a sudden it's like taboo to talk bad about him. And this book kind of pretty much shows that. I mean, there's a scene where she goes to go talk to Hank about, Jane Mansfield and whatever, and she talks about all the kind of things, about how glorious it is that everyone remembers how she died and whatnot. He's like, there's nothing great about that. There's nothing great about dying young when you had talent. There's nothing great about dying before your prime is over. And while it means you never got bad, it means you never had a time to grow or evolve into anything else either. And what I really liked about this book is that it just started off as kind of really shallow, weird idea. You mean you're following these kids around, Hollywood, talking about finding pieces of, like, where this guy killed himself, pieces of Jane Mansfield's bathtub and things like that. You think this is not going to be anything of death, but quickly you realize there's a real story behind this. And I really enjoy that about it. It really is a coming-of-age story in its own right. And while I feel like there were some cheesy parts, like Hilda and Jake's relationship, I do think the story itself is something really worth reading. There's a lot of name-dropping in this book and some personal pet peeves with the interpretation of some celebrities. She brings up all these kind of facts about it, but I wish they had brought up that Jane Mansfield is one of the most brilliant women in Hollywood at the time, although people only cared about her breasts, and while there was parts that irritated me, like the romance was kind of cheesy, I do felt like I wish they had put a little bit more focus on Benji and maybe showed a little bit more about things. I do enjoy the growth of the characters. I mean, even Hilda and her aunt, they evolve and how they get to understand each other better, because in the beginning you really only see one side of everything, but slowly I think it's interesting that in a lot of books the protagonist is seen as the all-knowing, smartest person in the group who really is like infallible. But in this book, basically everyone shows her that her idea is misguided, and I like that. I like the fact that people are not allowed to like make their characters be flawed and then grow up. And Hilda definitely did in the time in this book take place. She went from being this kind of morbid person to still having kind of like a fascination with it, but understanding where it came from, understanding that not everything had to be this black and white thing. It was kind of making fun of that kind of idea that you are only real the darker you are, you know that whole idea that real art is dark, real music is dark and tormented, that it's not always about that. And I really like that idea. It was a great read and I really enjoyed it. It was glad to see, characters develop and deteriorate in ways that made sense. And it had a good message. It was live your life because you only have one. And it's a very short book. It's not really that long. I think it's about 305 pages. And it's so tiny too. It's really quite cute. It's MTV Books, what I'm sure would turn a bunch of people off. But it really was a good read. It's not brilliant, but it was fun. And I find it funny that one of the characters' name is Benji. I just finished reading The Sound of Fury, and whenever I see Benji now, I think symbolism. So I'm probably going to reread it again to see if there was any real symbolism behind his namesake that I probably have missed. But I really think this is worth checking out. Even if you don't buy it, I think it'd be good to read it. Because it really is one of those books that really surprised me, because it really seemed like it was going to be something extremely shallow and silly. And I really only wanted to see it because I thought the pink hair looked really cute on the cover, which I know is really shallow, and I like the little outfit thing too. But when it really got down to it, this is more than just facts thrown together, which I think was the most annoying part, was that it felt like she just needed to have that kind of backdrop. I felt like it could have been something without all of that, but at the same time, it worked together. The name dropping sometimes, while I got annoying, it did help the book in a sense. Like, there are some books where name dropping really hinders it because you're not developing the character, but in a book like this, the names are characters. Like, Jim Belushi is a character in this book, even if he doesn't exist in it. All the people who are mentioned in this, celebrities that are dead and alive, are important to the story because their lives are what form these characters. They are the plot devices that drive these characters to do what they do. And so that helped it. Like, it was actually used to build it up and show characters who they are. There's a scene where Hilda and Benji are talking, and he asks her, like, what's her favorite Nirvana song, and she says Smells Like Teen Spirit, and he's just like, oh, only someone who really had no appreciation of them could really say something so generic. And he like names some obscure song of theirs, and he has this whole air of superiority because he knows this song that not a lot of people know, so he assumes, oh, I'm real. That really clicked with me because that's how people act, and it was good to just see something so real, even though it's not really a huge issue, covered in a really mature way for a book that really isn't meant to be groundbreaking. But I really enjoy it. I really like this book. I think Kathy Charles made a really, really good debut. I think it's one of my favorite books I've read so far. One of my favorites. And highly recommend it. You should definitely check it out. And next, we're going to be doing The Morganville Vampires, Glass Houses, and The Dead Girls Dance.